Parent Entrepreneur Power. Conversation number 168.
Parent Entrepreneur Power.
Wait, what? Entrepreneur Power!
This is the podcast for parents juggling the tough choices required for success in business while putting family first. Hi, I'm Mary Catherine Johnson, and I share the ups and downs and dirty truths of profits and potty training while chatting with successful parent entrepreneurs from all walks of life. Are you powered up? Hey there, Power Parents. Guess who? Mary Catherine Johnson here. And I have with me someone, the father of someone you've heard on this show before, and I'm really excited to chat with him as well. So Jim Palmer is an author, a speaker, and a coach, and of course, a father. Otherwise, he wouldn't be on this show. Hey there, Jim. How you doing?
I'm great, Mary. Thanks for having me on your program.
I appreciate your time, definitely. So give us your once upon a time story. That's where we always start. How did you get into this whole parenting and entrepreneur thing? Did the kids come first or the business?
Oh, the kids definitely came first. So once upon a time, I was 21. My wife was barely 21, and we got married and quickly found out where kids came from. Had our first kid at 23, and by the time I was 27, we had 4 kids. And so all those things, all those dreams of doing big things, you know, my wife and I making a little fun of it, but we made a conscious decision. We wanted to have a big family, and actually our plan was to have 3 kids, and we ended up on the 3rd try having twins. Jessica, my daughter, you mentioned, has a twin, so we had a family of 4, and yeah, and it wasn't until when I was 41 years old and I lost my job, and I had a lot of hard time finding a new job until I found out, well, because I wasn't supposed to keep looking for work. Now was the time to become an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. My girls were 13 at the time, and I had a 15 and a 17-year-old son, and that's when I became an entrepreneur. So the kids definitely came first.
Wow. Okay. So yeah, it didn't sound like you had this burning desire to be an entrepreneur all your life or anything like that. It just kind of was an accidental moment. And especially in our 40s, I know my husband and I had that conversation when we were in our 40s, and he's like, well, you can just go find a job. I'm like, dude, I'm in my 40s. I'm a woman.
What's interesting?
Are you kidding?
Mary Catherine, I always knew I would be an entrepreneur. In fact, I've always worked for entrepreneurial companies. But when I did lose my job, at that point, I still had 4 teenagers at home, and it just didn't seem like the right time. Mm-hmm. And then, literally almost 15 or 16 months of unemployment. And then just to make life a little more interesting and or stressful, I had cancer. 1 year into my unemployment, I was diagnosed with cancer. In fact, my wife, Stephanie, went back to work a few months after I lost my job, and literally she got a new job, and her first day on this new job in July of 2001 was the day I got the call from the doctor. So, gosh. I mean, we went through quite a period, and yeah, but I call it my season of crises. And the interesting thing is when I lost my job, prior to that, and you know how stories, it's like the fish story keeps getting bigger. So I don't know, there's a kernel of truth in this story somewhere. But somewhere before that, on Friday night, I would envision, the girls wanted to go to the movies or go to the mall, and Steven wanted to do something. And, I picture me staying at the door, giving $10 or $20 to each kid and doing the
George Jetson.
Yeah. And what happened when I lost my job is, well, not only did we no longer go out to eat, we canceled a lot of stuff, magazines, whatever, because you go down, you get into survival mode, and you really find out what those core expenses are. And even doing that, we were still quite upside down from our lifestyle. But the kids, the girls at 13 got jobs. I think they started with babysitting, then they worked at the local pizza shop and the dry cleaner. And, everybody learned a lesson. I learned a lot of lessons, but my kids really learned if they wanted something, they had to go earn it. There was no no free ride at that point. And here they are. My girls are 29, and they're always looking for bargains. They love when they buy something and it's on sale, but they totally understand that if they want something, they have to earn it. Well, that was one of the of all the things that could come out of that. I think that was one of the good lessons.
Definitely. There's a silver lining everywhere, right? And that was definitely the silver lining of that particular difficulty.
Yes.
Now, I don't think there's a silver lining about cancer except for the fact that you get to wake up today.
I did. Yeah. I mean, there was
Yeah.
about a 3-week period before my surgery where I didn't know if my average life expectancy past 5 years was going to be 5 years. And luckily it was only stage 2. So I'm still alive and kicking and cancer free today. But it was pretty scary. I'll be honest. It really shook me up bad. I didn't know if I'd see my girls graduate high school and things like that. And, it really, up to that point with advancing my career, I was a VP of marketing for a company. I'd done really well with my career up to that point. And, I certainly wanted to have nice things and be a good provider. But when you face your mortality, you really find out what's important. And obviously your relationships with your family and things like that. That's what's really important. It taught a lot. It taught everybody in my family a big lesson for sure.
Yeah, it is, because we can't negotiate out of that one, right? I mean, we can't just go find another job, or another body to live in, or another life to live. I mean, this is it. This is the one. And when we're faced with that, it kind of comes down to the true stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my
And,
goodness.
so anyway, we survived, and after to kind of trying to condense a lot of things happening, but I did get a job offer right before I was going in for my surgery, and I remember it was early September 2001. After my surgery, I remember I was kind of laying around on the couch recovering, and that's when, just like so many people, I watched September 11th happen on TV. And a few weeks after that, Mary Catherine, is when my new employer called and said, we're going to put our growth plans on hold. Hate to do this, but we're going to rescind the job offer. We'll stay in touch. And that's kind of when I hit my lowest point. And I honest to goodness, I just prayed for guidance because I didn't know what to do. I mean, gosh, I've been unemployed now for so long. The meager savings we had, was gone. We're heavily in debt at this point, and I didn't know what to do. And I believe I was told to start a business, become an entrepreneur.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I can. Let me tell you, Jim, that exact moment when you were sitting on the couch recovering in September, I was sitting on the couch with both of my legs propped up because I was 8 months pregnant. And I had casts up to the knee on both legs.
Oh my goodness!
I had broken both legs, and so yeah, I sat and watched September 11th with a huge 8-month baby hotel in front of me and my legs in casts. So yeah, I get it. September 2001 was not a fun month until, of course, my son was born on September 28th. So then it changed, But yeah, when we're faced with those situations, we really find out who we are, and we just have to believe that we're going to get through, and we're going to wake up tomorrow and try it again, and wake up tomorrow and try it again.
Yeah. What's interesting is I remember this thing, and it's not necessarily entrepreneurial related, but it's about kids and because kids see everything, right?
Everything.
So there was a moment when I was unemployed, and I mean, I was like buying multiple papers back then. I think Monster was
Big,
kind of relatively
yes.
new, and there was a couple other job boards, and I was calling people that I knew, people that I had met at my other job. I mean, I was trying to do everything I could to find work, but when Stephanie and the kids all the kids were going to school, and Stephanie was I kind of stayed out of the way, like in the morning. And then I heard a comment. I don't know if I heard it or Stephanie mentioned it to me, but the kid said something like, "It must be nice. Dad gets to hang around in his pajamas all day." And literally the minute they went out the door is when I went into go mode. Yeah. So from that moment on, I made sure I got up half an hour earlier, showered. And when my kids walked out the door to school, I was already at my computer. So they saw me at work, basically.
Yes.
I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, it is. And I agree. Same thing with that situation. I had a 3.5-year-old at the time when I was pregnant and broken legs. And he would look at me and want to play because I was a very active mom, and I would go down and play cars and trains and do all that kind of stuff. And I changed obviously with the situation and went down into some depression and woe is me, rightly so, of course, with, casts on your legs and pregnant. I think you have a little bit of, license to just kind of sit there for a while. But then he looked at me like, where'd mom go? And when I saw that look in his eyes, I said, okay, something's got to change. And basically swung that big old hotel around and got on my knees and got on the ground and started playing trains with him. And the look in his eyes, Jim, the look in his eyes almost brought me to tears and right back down into that depression, because it was just pure magic that, there she is, because I was back down there playing. And that's all it took for me to start going, okay, something's got to change. I got to get out of this wallowing thing and do something. So I get it. I mean, we're having too many parallels coming around here. But that's what life is about, right? I mean, when we realize that we're not the only ones that have these things, and we connect with people who have had different but yet similar journeys, it makes life all sweeter. So now you said you're going to, you said, all right, you just have to do this entrepreneurial thing because the other stuff wasn't working. And kudos to you to not just try and keep going in something that isn't working and make a switch, because that's got to happen sometimes, doesn't it?
Yep. And so literally when I said, wait, am I supposed to be an entrepreneur? I'm like, I felt, the Lord was telling me to be an entrepreneur. And I'm like, it's really? I got no money. I'm in debt,
Yeah.
And, but the minute I grasped onto that idea, I want to do this. And it was almost instantaneous, Mary Catherine. I went from being, these are my own words, I went from being an unemployed loser to the founder of my own corporation. And all I had to do now is figure out how to bring in some revenue. That was my new mission. So it felt really good. And I also remember certain things about the early years I struggled like everybody. My first 12 months in business was revenue free, as I call it. It took me a year to get my first client. But I remember telling my kids, I'm going to be very successful. This is going to be an amazing company. And I want you to remember, I would tell them, I want you to remember how hard I'm working now, because when I am very successful, making lots of money and maybe not working quite as hard, I don't want you to say, wow, look at Dad. I want you to remember these early years, because I thought there was a big lesson there. Whether you are working or starting your own business or whatever, there's an enormous amount of work that goes into it. When people look at somebody successful, they only see what you might call the finished product. They don't see the sleepless nights, the angst, the tears, the worry, the mental anguish and not being able to make payroll.
The insecurities.
They don't see any of that.
Yeah.
So I wanted to point out some of those lessons as at least while the girls were still around before they went to college.
Definitely. And it sounds like you did, because I know Jessica is doing great things. And Power Parents, we're talking about Jessica Rhodes, and she is the founder of Interview Connections. And she's been on this program, and she's doing amazing things. So you've obviously shown her a thing or two. Definitely.
Do you want to hear the little background about how that started?
Go for it.
So, first of all, let me show you one more thing. So I literally started at my dining room table. I had a Dell computer, and I'm in my dining room. And when the girls would come home from school, of course, the book bags hit the floor. They'd want to get some snacks or whatever. I remember in that first year telling Stephanie, we need to put some doors on here so I can turn it into an office. And she goes, how about you get a paying client?
Yeah, and then we'll do doors.
That. That was kind of funny. But so when Jessica, who's always been, we both thought she was just a career woman, super strong. She's very good at sales, worked in the nonprofit world. And when she was pregnant with Nathan, her first child, she came down to our place on Thanksgiving, and she said, I'd really like to be a stay-at-home mom like Mom was. But, at this point, we can't really live on Jamie's salary alone. And I said, I'll help you start a business at home that you can do part-time. Well, what kind of business is that? I said, I'll turn you into a VA, a virtual assistant. I'll be your first client. I'll stay your client as long as you do good work. I mean, you get a pass because you're my daughter, but you'll keep the job because you do good work, which I had no doubt she would. Mm-hmm. And I said, if you do a good job, I'll introduce you around. So one of the things that I've always done is interviews like this. And I said, I need somebody to book me more interviews. So she was doing some admin work. She was doing client support for some of the people that bought my products and training courses. And then she was also booking the interviews. So literally about, I think it was May So Nathan might have been 2 or 3 months old at this point. Steph and I go up to Rhode Island where she lived, and Jessica and I went out, and Nathan in the stroller just took a walk. And I said, "Tell me what's going on. How do you like it?" "Oh, I really like being an entrepreneur and got my own schedule. I can work at night if I want, or whenever Nathan's sleeping." And I said, "Of all the things you're doing," because she's probably doing at least half a dozen things, right, for me and some other folks. I said, "What do you like the most? What do you think's the most profitable? And what do you think has the greatest growth potential?" And they might all be different things, but if they're all the same, then what a home run.
Yeah.
And she goes, "I really like booking your interviews. I find that interesting." And she goes, "I mean, it's really a labor-based. At this point, it's just me. And I think there's enormous growth potential because podcasting, this was like, almost 4 years ago, is while it was exploding 4 years ago, I mean, it's like boom, off the charts today, right? In 2017. And I said, "You know what you are, Jessica?" I said, "You're like the connector. You're like the connector to interviews." And I said, "You got your cell phone with you?" She said, "Yeah." I said, "Go to GoDaddy." And we just literally about 3 tries later, using my analogy that she's a connector of interviews, I said, we created interviewconnections.com. And the rest is history. She's doing amazingly well, got a whole team and moving into a big office.
Yes. Isn't that amazing? But see, that's great to hear, though, the background of it, Jim, because it really did not just happen overnight. It didn't just happen when she got the office and the team. It happened 4 years ago with pushing the stroller and one interview at a time. And that's exactly how this works. So tell me, what was that first business you started?
My first business was called Dynamic Communication, and very corporate sounding name, so I kind of regret that, but whatever, no regrets. And with all my experience in retail and management and marketing, and I helped grow a national franchise, I thought I would be a consultant, right? But I also knew that's not the easiest thing because you're kind of selling yourself. It's somewhat of an intangible. And I said, but I had always done newsletters. I created my first newsletter when I was 21, had done it for literally 25 years. I said, every company can use a newsletter. So my immediate pool of prospects is literally every company. So I started doing that to bring in that was going to be my cash cow while I was waiting to take off as a consultant. Well, the newsletter, after 12 months, the newsletter business did take off, consultancy didn't. So I grew that, and about 5 years in, so we're now at 2006 timeframe. I was doing multiple six figures, but I was also working myself to the bone. And at one point, Stephanie said, "When are we going to go on vacation?" The last vacation we had was before you got laid off. So it was like well over 5 years ago. And Mary Catherine, my first thought was, can we afford it? Yeah, we can do something. But then I thought, how can I go away? I mean, I have a business. I may be the owner of my own corporation with the glossy business card and this term and the title of president on my own business card, but I was the grunt. I did everything in the business, writing and designing newsletters and overseeing printing and mailing, deliveries. I was doing it all, like a lot of small business folks. But then I realized that I had no more leverage. I couldn't really grow much more. I really didn't want to have a big staff of employees. So I kind of went back to university, as they say, and I learned a whole lot about internet marketing and direct response copywriting. I learned about leverage, and basically about a year later, I rebranded myself as the newsletter guru, and I started a business called No Hassle Newsletters. And now we have newsletter templates that are created each month, content that people can subscribe to and use in their own newsletter. And then I launched probably 4 or 5 more internet businesses over the course of the next 3 years. And then I started my Dream Business Coaching program because people wanted to know how I was creating so many businesses, and I've written 6 books in the last 6, 7, 8 years, and just kept going from there.
Because each stage introduces us to the next stage.
It really does. Every time you step outside your comfort zone and start doing something new, different than maybe 6 months ago you thought, holy crap, I would never do that. And you somehow do it and you find out, well, I didn't die, then maybe do it again and it works and you keep doing more things. I never thought I'd be an author. I joke that I skipped more English classes in high school than I attended. I wasn't going to put my name on a book where people could learn, what a fool I was. Again, there's that internal voice going, right?
Yes.
But little did I know that, turns out I'm a pretty good writer, or at least I have some good thoughts and ideas, and I have a good editor that makes my thoughts and ideas sound coherent. And, I'm writing my 7th book as we speak. And, it's a very good positioning tool for entrepreneurs. So anybody that thinks they're not a writer, you don't have to be a writer. You just need to be an author.
You need to be an author. You need to have a really good editor, and then have a team to put that new baby out into the world.
I learned that the hard way too. It wasn't until my 5th book, because writing a book is hard work. I mean, literally, it's all time consuming, and it's a big project. And when you finish the book, for me, it was like a giant wipe my brow, like glad that's done. But that's actually when the work really has to be done, of marketing it and putting it out there, doing a big launch and things like that. And so anyway, yeah, I kind of learned that lesson the hard way.
Yeah, beta readers and it's a whole other beast. But you market it just like you market anything else. You really have to find your audience and all that kind of stuff. So, wow, what an adventure. So we're talking how many years between when you first started? You're talking 2001. So we're talking 16 years.
Yeah, this October will be my 16th anniversary as a business owner.
Yes. Wow. It'll be actually, we're in March chatting about this, and this is actually my 14th anniversary.
Congratulations.
In online business.
We overcame the hump, the 5-year hump.
Oh, yeah. Overcame it and slumped down into it, and then rose back up from the ashes. Definitely.
Yes.
Oh, boy. Lots of those stories. Wow. Okay. So now, all right. So let's bring it. If you can do one thing for me from when you first started. And I love the way you described the fact that you were the grunt. You were the president, but you were also the grunt, because so many of us, and I did the exact same thing, fall into this doing everything ourselves and have to learn that lesson the hard way. And then we are able to then delegate out. So your daughter was one person you delegated things to. Was there anyone else before her that you were able to let go of?
13. I have a team of 13 right now. And when she came on board, I think she was like 10 or 11. So at that point, I had learned how to delegate, because when I started coaching entrepreneurs, so I'm always telling people you need to focus on high revenue generating activity. For me, that's coaching and marketing my coaching services. So as far as no hassle newsletters, no hassle social media, concierge print and mail, custom article generator, all that stuff, I have a team of virtual assistants. I have no employees. And these virtual assistants I've trained, they've been with me a long time. I pay them well, but they make sure those businesses stay running with almost very, very little input from me. We've got everything systematized, and that's another thing a lot of people need to do, is put systems and procedures in place. But those companies run almost on autopilot. So literally, I work 3 days a week. I work Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, literally on the phone from like 8:30 to 6 o'clock. Quite brain dead after Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, but that allows me to, have 4 days off and just be on our boat or do whatever we want to do. And honestly, if there's not something going on, you'll probably find me at work those days. Just I'm a worker bee. That's my generation. But if I want to do something, or if we want to take a trip to go see the grandkids or something, we can do that. And I don't have to like rearrange my whole schedule.
Exactly. So you've created and you've found the freedom that's that buzzword that has been thrown around quite a bit that everyone is seeking. You've created that lifestyle for yourself, and you've done it through hiring good people and creating systems for them and you to follow, so that so you can run the businesses rather than the other way around.
That's right. Now, the third chapter in my book, Decide, is called Delegate or Stay Small Forever. A lot of people have trouble with that because in most cases, and even when I hired my 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, it always seems, Mary Catherine, that you're putting the cart before the horse a little bit. Mm-hmm. Like you're questioning, well, do I need it now? What if I wait 90 days? I know I'm going to need one eventually. And the point is, there's an expression, if you're thirsty, like if you're feeling dry in the mouth, you should have been drinking an hour ago. Right? So if you're already starting to feel stretched And if your to-do list is just getting a little bit too long, you should be hiring help now. And for those folks who are struggling being the grunt in their business and they're not ready because they don't feel they have the cash flow to hire somebody, you could hire a virtual assistant for I know you can hire people for even 5 hours a week, right? So maybe 20 hours a month, and let's just say 20 hours a month at even $20 an hour. I'm sure you can find that's like $400 a month. Now, well, Jim, I don't have $400 a month. Well, let me ask you this: if you suddenly found, because this is the problem everybody has, I don't have the time. If you suddenly found 20 hours this month of which you had nothing to do because you're no longer going to be managing your database or licking stamps. Gosh, that's my expression for years ago, which I know you don't lick stamps anymore. But, doing task-oriented stuff, if you suddenly had, don't you think maybe you could finish your book, or maybe you could create that info product or write that autoresponder series or whatever it is, those things will move your business forward. So I always looked at it as like the 90-day rule. If I can't bring in more revenue in 90 days that would now then offset the expense of bringing that person on, then maybe I did make a mistake and hire too soon. But that has never happened to me so far. And literally, if I didn't have the team of 13 people, I couldn't basically work 3 days a week. And I'm 58. I'll soon be 59. But I think the first 10 years, maybe even 12 years of my business, I probably worked more hours in 10 years than most people work in their entire career. Exactly. I'm sure you can relate, right?
Yes, exactly.
Hour weeks.
Yes.
And so I don't feel bad about. I mean, I've worked really, really hard to get my business to this point. And which is another mindset thing, by the way. When you get yourself to where you want to be, you got to make sure you can enjoy it. So quick story for you. 3 years ago, when Stephanie and I bought our first boat, and at that point I was working the 3-day week. And I remember on Sunday evening, this is back when Steph was working, so we took 2 cars to the marina. She and most everybody else in the marina goes home Sunday night, and I was sitting there in my boat feeling good and probably had a piece of pizza and a beer, and I woke up Monday morning completely alone in the marina. Everybody's gone, and I started to feel guilty. Like, what the hell? Should I be at work? Why? How come I'm not at work? I worked hard to achieve that, yet it felt wrong.
Right.
So I don't think there's no shortage of head games for entrepreneurs. That's for sure.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, because it really is true. We only always see the outside, right? We only see the results. We don't always see the process that got us there. And I don't care who you are, Jim, thank you so much for sharing that, because we all deal with the insecurities, and they might come out in different ways in each of us, but they're there. And they're entrenched many times, and getting over them is very difficult. But, I will take that insecurity of sitting on your boat Monday morning. I'll take that any day. I'm sure there are many other insecurities that had to get you to that point that you had to overcome. But yeah, that's a pretty good one. I think you can handle that.
Here's another funny one. So years before that, Stephanie and I bought kayaks. That was our first foray into boating.
Little boats, yeah, little teeny boats.
No engine, just a $500 kayak, right? Yep. So a lot easier. But and the house that we sold recently was right near a lake, and so if it was a beautiful afternoon and I didn't have any calls, I would just go kayak for an hour, and it felt amazing. And then I'd come back and work, whatever. But I remember it was somewhere around 1:00, some sunny afternoon in the summer, and I was paddling, and I'm coming up on shore, and I see a woman with her 2 kids right at the little beach there. And she said, "That looks like a lot of fun." I said, "Oh, it is. It's really relaxing." And she goes, "Do you mind if I ask you what you do, that you could be out here kayaking in the middle of the day?"
1 in the afternoon, yeah.
Right. And I said, "Well, I own my own business." And not in a snotty way, but she goes, "Oh, that must be nice." And I said, "It is nice. I get to choose whatever 80 hours in the week I want to work."
And right now, this hour was not one of them.
Right. So I'll probably be working at 10 o'clock tonight when you're sleeping.
That's right.
I know I'll be up by 4:30 or whatever,
Yeah, it is true. It is. Yes, it is. And so, daily choices, daily activities. You've talked about so many things, and I have a feeling that each conversation is probably a section of a different book, of one of your books, because
It is.
that's all we can do, right? We can only take a little snapshot. We don't have the last 16 years to follow you around to learn all of those lessons. We can only take a few little snippets. So thinking about that, and thinking about the life you've led, a few of the stories that you've told, the books that you've written, the businesses that you have, if there's someone sitting on the fence and they're rocking back and forth, and I have to tell you, Jim, that's a few of the members of my audience, because we've communicated over Twitter and in email and on Facebook about this. They've personally contacted me about this. So I know there's some of you out there that are sitting on the fence and you're rocking back and forth and going, oh man, either I have to get over this hump and I know I got to jump and hire that person, or I know I got to jump and invest here in this education for myself, or I know I got to jump and start. I've got this amazing thing and I know it would work, but they're still rocking back and forth and they're not quite, they just haven't push the momentum to jump. What advice would you give that person?
So what's going to be fun here? This is going to be you're going to think this is very promotional, but I'm going to give you my answer is going to be the name of the last 3 books in the future title of book 7. Are you ready for this? You're going to like this. This isn't Jim promoting. So number 1, it's okay to be scared as long as you never give up. That was book 4. Book 5 was stop waiting for it to get easier. Create your dream business now. Book 6 was decide. In other words, until you decide, nothing else happens. And book 7 that I'm writing right now, Mary Catherine, is called Just Say Yes. So that's my advice.
So it sounds like each of those things was a different step in that whole entire decision process, because it's not, you can't just decide and do it. There are many steps along the way, and you've outlined 4 of them?
Yeah. What's funny is because by the time I wrote 6 books, I said, all right, that's it. I'm hanging up the old typewriter, so to speak. And but I got inspired in January, literally about two months ago, to write the next book. And I think, I don't want to write another book. Yes, you are. You're going to write this one. And so my wife, Stephanie, and I, almost a year ago, it was in like May or June when she was getting ready to retire from her 15-year career in childcare. And she said, we ought to go on an adventure, because we've lived our lives kind of the safe, predictable way, and did everything by the book, as you might imagine. And we just ought to go on an adventure. And I thought, well, I kind of like that. And so ultimately we decided we're going to sell our house, put our furniture in storage, and we're going to buy a boat and just cruise around and live on the boat for a little while. But when you make a decision that big, your mind starts immediately playing the what if game.
Right. And that little amygdala back there, that little part of your brain, the fear part of your brain that's there to keep you safe, man, it comes out in force.
There's 2 things that happened which cause us to now we're getting ready to move on board in about a month or so. So there's 2 things that happened. The first one happened immediately. So we talked about different things. At one point, should we go live in the Caribbean for a year? And we binge watched HGTV, Caribbean lifestyle and stuff. And then we started saying, like, who do we think we are? Should we just buy a townhouse and downsize, get rid of the 1.5 acre yard and all this and that? We didn't know what to do, but we didn't feel like maybe that's not the prudent thing, kind of raised with some conservative principles financial wise and anything else. But anyway, the next day, Stephanie goes to work and she gets a daily email, one of these inspirational things. And it's a quote by Hunter S. Thompson. And I'm going to paraphrase. I'll get it pretty close, but it says, you were not made to arrive at heaven's door in a well-preserved body. You should slide in, skid in, all dusted up and go, wow, what a ride.
Chocolate in one hand, wine in the other.
Yes,
yeah, I know that quote.
She sent that to me and said, that's a sign we need to do this. So fast forward about 6 months, we're putting the house up for sale. We kind of zeroing in on the boat we'd like to live on and things like that. And both of us are like, I think at this point we've each read about 6 books from people who have actually become liveaboards and that whole lifestyle. I read this one book It was called "What's Up Ditch," and the ditch is a name that refers to what's called the Intercoastal Waterway. You can travel up and down from Maine to Florida without having to be out in the ocean. It's actually a ditch they dug before the war to protect the ships from submarines, et cetera. Anyway, so this guy says, yeah, you know why a lot of people who think about, because maybe living on a boat might be romantic and fun and things like that. The reason a lot of people don't do it is they play the what if game. What if I run aground? What if I hit somebody? What if the boat breaks down? What if I sink? What if? And he says, yeah, but what if you wake up every day and you face a new challenge or something or a problem and you solve it, you fix it. But what if you do actually find out, and pardon my French, he goes, what if you find out you're a badass boat driver and you actually go on an amazing adventure? And you only are going to know that if you just say yes. And now, me being a business coach, I said, I'm going to use that because
right.
I'll address the people you just mentioned, Mary Catherine. So everybody that's sitting on the fence going, I really want to start a business part-time or otherwise, maybe open a bakery, whatever it is, but I'm playing the what if game. What if nobody comes? What if I go broke? What if I embarrass my children, my parents, my neighbors? What if they laugh? What if I lose self-respect? What if I lose half my savings or all of my savings? What if? Yeah, but what if you actually do this and you wake up every day and you solve problems, you overcome challenges, you find new ways to get customers? What if you find out you really are a great speaker and people do want to learn from you and be inspired from you? And what if you say yes and you actually create an amazing business and you have no regrets when you're on death's door? What if you just say yes? So that really is, that's kind of the essence of why I decided to write my next book called Just Say Yes.
Yes, and I have to, it's so funny, Jim. I have to tell you, I have a weekly Facebook Live series specifically called What If Wednesdays. And that's exactly what it's about.
Wow.
What if Wednesday? So each Wednesday, I do exactly that. What if? And I take the negative and then I turn it into what if the positive. It's the exact same thing. And it's a Facebook Live every Wednesday. So, and today that we're speaking just happens to be Wednesday. So
we were destined to meet then, I'll tell you.
So when we're done here, I usually do this around noon Pacific time. And so I'm going to go do my What If Wednesday.
There you go.
So what a wonderful way to end this. Thank you so much for that wonderful piece of advice. So Power Parents, you heard it. Take that what if negative and turn it into a what if positive, and just you're just going to get splinters in your rear end. So just get off that fence.
Can I give you one more for those fence sitters?
Yeah, go.
I had this coaching client, and he was brand new, and he wanted to be a kind of a coach or a guru in the restaurant industry, and he had an amazing career as an executive in the industry, but he now wanted to set up his own shop, so to speak. And one of the things that's required if you're going to be brand new, at least in that business, you have to make cold calls. You have to get your name until you start getting your name out there, get a few success stories, start getting some referrals. And he told me candidly, I can't do it. I hate those calls. And I said, let me tell you something. This is going to be really appropriate to your show, Mary Catherine. I said, your children are watching you. And if you think when they go to school, they don't know that you're not making those calls, they know you're not making those calls because, as you told me, your dishwasher's still broken. You're not taking your family out to dinner because finances are really, really tight. And I said, what would happen if your 14-year-old son came home and said, I was going to try out for the baseball team, and I'm afraid if I strike out, the kids will laugh at me, and I'm just not going to go back. I think I'm just going to go sit on the couch and play video games. What would you tell your son? You get back up there and you take another swing, and who cares what those kids say, right? So why don't you take a lesson and instead of just not making those calls, why don't you personalize that task and say, instead of doing it for me, instead of doing it for my business, because that's all me centered, why don't I actually do these calls, get more clients, grow my business, fix the dishwasher, take the kids and my wife out to dinner, and really lead by example. Give my kids an example of what it takes to overcome the what ifs and really step up and be a man. I said, don't you think you owe your son that? I was really hard on him, to be honest with you.
Man.
But I really gave him what for. And you know what else? He did that. And 8 months later, he had called so many people because I really basically challenged his manhood. Yeah. 8 months later, one of the calls he made was to a local chain that owned like 28 restaurants. They ended up hiring him and giving him an equity stake in the business. And it's all because he made those cold calls.
That's right. That's right. That's fantastic. All right, Jim, there is the place that I think, Power Parents, I think you can find so many lessons, so many actionable steps that you can take from the conversation you just heard. And I'm going to be hard on you too, like I usually am, and say, get out there and do it. Your kids are watching. There is no excuse. We've talked to so many people on this show that have overcome so many obstacles. If they can overcome those obstacles, you can get on the phone and make a few phone calls. You can put on your walking shoes and get out there and knock on some doors. You can get behind your computer and type till your fingers hurt and do what you got to do because, yeah, your kids are watching. Thank you, Jim. Thank you. I can't wait to hear about your adventures on that boat because
what a great
wow.
pleasure it's been being on your program. We started a blog, by the way. It's called ourfloatinghome.com. If anybody's just curious, it's not about business or sales. It's just we're going to chronicle our big adventure because people are curious, like, our first trip out, we're going to go buy the Statue of Liberty just so we can do it. Yeah. So anyway, ourfloatinghome.com if anybody wants to see what we're doing and follow along our journey.
To get powered up for your day, just go to parententrepreneur.power.com and listen to any one of the over 100 episodes we've had so far with amazing entrepreneurs just like you. It might just help you feel like a grown-up again.